the nun who disappeared from St. Mary Convent of Horror. The rain lashed against the leaded windows of St. Mary of the Sorrows Convent like 1,000 frantic fingers. Inside, the air hung thick, not just with damp, but with the cloying scent of aged stone. These wax candles perpetually burning before somber icons, and something else, something faintly organic, like forgotten lilies slowly rotting in a sealed vase. Sister Evangeline traced the worn beads of her rosary, the smooth wood offering scant comfort against the gnawing unease that had become her constant companion. She was thinking, as she often did now, of Sister Agatha, the one who vanished. St. Mary's wasn't officially called the Convent of Horror. That was a name whispered by superstitious villagers in the shadowed valley below, a name that clung to the gray stone edifice like ivy long after the last scandal had faded from living memory. To the bishopric, it remained St. Mary of the Sorrows, a place of quiet contemplation, prayer, and charitable works. Yet, the convent knew, its very stones seemed steeped in a melancholic dread, a legacy of tragedies both mundane and inexplicable that stretched back centuries. Plagues had claimed sisters within its walls. A fire in the 1700s had taken the lives of 7. There were whispers of madness, of suicides discreetly hushed, of a particularly brutal mother, superior from the Victorian era whose ghost was said to stalk the north wing, now permanently locked. Disappearances, however, were rarer. Agatha's was the first in over 50 years. Sister Agatha had been different, not rebellious, precisely, but possessed of a quiet intensity that set her apart. While others found solace in the regimented rhythm of prayer, work, and silence, Agatha seemed to vibrate with an inner energy barely contained. Her piety was profound, almost feverish. Her prayers whispered with a fervor that bordered on desperation. She spent hours in the neglected convent library, poring over crumbling theological texts, journals of long-dead mystics, and obscure histories of the region. She was particularly drawn to the convent's own annals, the heavy, leather-bound volumes recording births, deaths, arrivals, departures, and the occasional, cryptically noted unfortunate incident. She sought answers. Mother Superior Ignatia had stated flatly during the brief, tense meeting after Agatha was reported missing. Her face, usually a mask of serene authority, was etched with deep lines of worrying and something else, fear, answers to questions better left unasked in this place. Ignatia, a woman whose own faith seemed forged from iron discipline rather than warmth, had known St. Mary's longest. She carried its history in the stoop of her shoulders and the guarded look in her pale eyes. Evangeline remembered Agatha's eyes most vividly, large, dark, and unsettlingly perceptive, especially in the weeks before her disappearance. Agatha had grown increasingly withdrawn, jumping at unexpected sounds, her gaze often fixed on the damp patches spreading across the convent walls, or lingering on the grotesque carvings hidden in the cloister's shadowed corners, gargoyles weathered into monstrous ambiguity, saints whose faces seemed twisted in silent screams. She'd stopped speaking during communal meals, pushing food around her plate, her pallor deepening to an unhealthy gray. Then came the whispers, not from the other sisters. Gossip was strictly forbidden, but other whispers, faint, sibilant sounds that seemed to coil through the drafty corridors late at night, originating from nowhere and everywhere at once. Evangeline heard them first while returning from the chapel after matins, like dry leaves skittering on stone, or the rasp of old paper. Sometimes, like voices murmuring just below the threshold of comprehension. She'd mentioned it only to Agatha, late one night in the hushed confines of their shared cell. Agatha's reaction was immediate, her eyes wide with a strange mixture of terror and grim validation. She clutched Evangeline's arm, her fingers cold and trembling. "You hear them too? Thank God, I thought it was only me, that I was losing my mind." She leaned closer, her breath a ghost against Evangeline's ear. "They come from the walls, from the foundation's asterisk. They speak of the first sorrow, the unforgiven asterisk." "The unforgiven?" Evangeline echoed, a chill unrelated to the convent's pervasive damp creeping down her spine. Agatha wouldn't elaborate further that night, retreating into a terrified silence. But the next day, she pressed a small, folded piece of paper into Evangeline's hand during their work. "Period in the herb garden." Written in Agatha's tight, precise script were fragments, seemingly copied from the forbidden annals. "Year of our Lord 15 Sister Alara, accused of consorting with dark forces, walled within the East Cellar for her transgression denied last rites, her pleas for mercy unanswered, sealed with stone and prayer. Yet her final curse, my sorrow shall seep through these stones, my voice shall find your ears, Until one comes who understands. Persistent complaints. Late 17th century. Sounds of weeping from below. Cold spots in the refectory. Dismissed as drafts. 1842. Novice Beatrice found wandering the cloister. Babbling of the woman in the walls. Committed to asylum. Died within the year. Evangeline stared at the words, the bright sunlight suddenly feeling cold. The East Cellar. It was a place spoken of only in hushed tones, a low, vaulted space beneath the oldest part of the convent. Partially collapsed centuries ago and deemed structurally unsound, access was blocked by heavy, rusted iron gates secured by a chain and a padlock older than anyone living. It was forbidden's territory, a dark maw in the convent's underbelly. Agatha became obsessed. Her prayers grew more frantic. Her trips to the library more frequent and furtive. She began sketching strange symbols in the margins of her prayer book, angular, unsettling shapes that looked like corrupted geometry. She spent hours standing motionless near the sealed gate leading to the East Cellar stairs, her head tilted as if listening intently. The whispers, she confided to Evangeline one desperate night, were getting clearer. She's angry, so angry, and lonely. She wants out. She wants to be heard. The storm the night Agatha vanished was biblical. Thunder cracked like the sky splitting open. Lightning strobed the cloisters, turning the stone figures into grotesque, dancing specters. The wind howled with the voices of the damned, rattling windows and moaning through unseen cracks. Evangeline, lying rigid in her narrow bed, couldn't sleep. The whispers were louder than ever, a susurrating chorus beneath the storm's fury, seeming to vibrate the very floorboards. Agatha's bed was empty. She hadn't returned after Compline. Fear warred with duty. Evangeline slipped from her bed, pulling her rough woolen habit tighter. The convent was a landscape of shadows and sudden, blinding flashes. She moved silently, guided by memory and the erratic lightning, towards the forbidden's north wing corridor where the cellar gate stood. The air grew colder with each step, the scent of damp stone giving way to something older, mustier, tinged with the faint, metallic tang of earth, and something else, faintly sweet, cloying, like decay masked by incense. The whispers coalesced here, no longer indistinct murmurs, but layered voices, a woman sobbing, low guttural chanting, a sound like stone grinding on stone. They seemed to emanate from the heavy oak door leading to the cellar stairs, barred by the ancient iron gate. And there, illuminated by a single, guttering candle placed precariously on the flagstones, was Agatha. She wasn't trying to break the lock. She stood facing the gate, her arms slightly raised, palms pressed flat against the rusted iron bars. Her head was thrown back, her lips moving rapidly, but no sound Evangeline could hear came out. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, reflecting the candle flame like dark pools of oil. She seemed to be chanting, or perhaps communing. "Agatha," Evangeline hissed, her voice swallowed by a peal of thunder. "What are you doing? Come away." Agatha didn't react. Her body began to tremble, not with cold, but with a violent, unnatural vibration. The whispers intensified, becoming a physical pressure in Evangeline's ears, a buzzing that vibrated her teeth. The candle flame flared unnaturally high, casting monstrous, leaping shadows on the damp walls. For a horrifying instant, Evangeline thought she saw something asterisk behind asterisk Agatha. Within the deeper darkness beyond the gate, a suggestion of pale, wasted limbs, tangled dark hair, eyes that glinted with a light that wasn't the candles. She understands. Agatha's voice ripped through the whispers, a raw, guttural sound that didn't sound like her at all. It was layered, echoing with other voices. Asterisk, she knows the sorrow. She will be the vessel. The stone cannot hold forever. Asterisk. Then, the candle snuffed out as if plunged into water. Darkness, absolute and suffocating, crashed down. A final, deafening crack of thunder shook the convent to its foundations. Evangeline screamed, stumbling backward. When the next lightning flash illuminated the corridor a heartbeat later, Agatha was gone. Only the cold iron gate remained, the heavy padlock still firmly in place. The whisper ceased abruptly, leaving a silence so profound it roared in Evangeline's ears. On the damp flagstones where Agatha had stood, a single item lay, her rosary, the beads shattered, the small silver crucifix twisted into an unnatural, agonized shape. The search was frantic but futile. The storm hampered efforts, and the convent's ancient, labyrinthine structure offered countless hiding places, or places to dispose of something. The local gendarmes were called, their heavy boots echoing unnaturally in the sacred silence. They searched the accessible areas, questioned the sisters with brusque skepticism, and scoured the surrounding woods once the rain abated. They found nothing. No footprints led away in the mud, no sign of forced entry, no trace of Sister Agatha. Mother Superior Ignatia closed ranks. The official story, conveyed to the bishop and the authorities, was that Sister Agatha, overcome by religious melancholy and the strain of cloistered life, had likely wandered into the storm in a confused state and perished. The whispers, drafts, the wind, overactive imaginations fueled by the convent's gloomy atmosphere and the storm. The East Cellar, re-inspected superficially and declared utterly impassable. The gate undisturbed. Agatha's frantic research and strange behavior were attributed to incipient mental instability, a tragic but private matter. The shattered rosary, an unfortunate accident, perhaps dropped in her distress. The convent slowly settled back into its oppressive rhythm. The incident filed away as another sorrowful entry in its long, dark history. But Evangeline knew the whispers never truly returned to their former faintness. They lingered, a subtle undercurrent in the silence of the chapel, a faint sigh in the dormitory at night, a chilling murmur just beyond hearing when one stood too close to the East Cellar gate. The cold spots intensified, particularly in the refectory above the sealed vaults. Lila placed on the altar seemed to wilt and rot unnaturally fast. Evangeline burned the journal in the kitchen hearth, watching the pages curl and blacken, Agatha's desperate words consumed by flame. But the knowledge couldn't be burned away. The convent asterisk was asterisk sick. Agatha hadn't fled. She had been asterisk taken asterisk, not by man, but by the hungry darkness festering beneath St. Mary's, a darkness wearing the face of a wronged nun's eternal sorrow. Life at St. Mary's continued, but the horror had shifted. It wasn't just the oppressive atmosphere anymore. It was the knowing. Evangeline felt the convent's gaze upon her. The whispers, when they came, seemed more focused, sometimes forming words that slithered into her mind. Asterisk you heard. You know. Asterisk the cold spots seemed to follow her. Lila died where she walked. Mother Ignatia watched her with new suspicion, a silent understanding passing between them that spoke of shared, unspeakable knowledge. A year passed. The villagers' whispers about the Convent of Horror grew louder again, fueled by Agatha's unsolved disappearance. Pilgrims stopped coming. The bishop spoke vaguely of consolidation. Evangeline knew the end was near, not just for her vocation, but for St. Mary's itself. One gray afternoon, tasked with cleaning the seldom used archives near the north wing, Evangeline felt an unnatural pull towards the end of the corridor where the cellar gate stood. The air was frigid. The whispers were a constant, low hum. As she passed the heavy gate, something caught her eye. Low down, near the base of the ancient, rusted iron bars, where damp perpetually gathered, the stone seemed wrong, not crumbling, but asterisk softened asterisk, as if subtly reshaped. Kneeling, ignoring the icy numbness seeping through her habit, Evangeline peered closer. There, barely visible beneath a sheen of moisture, was a faint impression in the stone. It wasn't erosion. It was the outline of a small, delicate hand, fingers splayed, pressed against the rock from the asterisk other side asterisk, as if someone had pushed against it with desperate, fading strength. Around the edges of the impression, the stone bore the faintest, almost imperceptible tracery of dark veins, like roots of shadow spreading into the convent's bones. Evangeline recoiled, scrambling back, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The whispers surged into a cacophony of sighs and sobs. The cold intensified, biting deep into her marrow. The stone couldn't hold forever. Agatha had been wrong. She wasn't the key to ending the sorrow. She had become part of it. Another voice added to the chorus in the dark, another sorrow seeping through the stones, and the thing that wore Alara's face, fed by centuries of pain and now Agatha's fresh terror, was growing stronger. It wasn't satisfied. It wanted more. It wanted to be asterisk heard asterisk by everyone. It wanted out. Evangeline fled the corridor. The image of the handprint seared into her mind. She didn't report it. Who would believe her? Mother Ignatia would only see it as proof of Evangeline's own unraveling, a convenient excuse to send her away, silencing another potential source of scandal. The authorities would dismiss it as a trick of moisture and shadow. St. Mary stood sentinel over the valley, its gray stones weeping under the perpetually overcast sky. The nuns moved through their routines like pale ghosts, their prayers tinged with a new undercurrent of dread. Sister Evangeline walked among them, but her eyes, like Agatha's before her, now held a terrible knowledge. She heard the whispers constantly now, a chilling counterpoint to the chants. She felt the cold that emanated from below, a cold that promised an end far worse than death. The disappearance of Sister Agatha wasn't an end. It was a beginning. The first sorrow had found a new listener. The horror within St. Mary's walls had tasted fresh fear, and it was hungry. The stones, saturated with centuries of silent suffering and the fresh terror of the vanished, could only contain it for so long. The Convent of Horror lived up to its name, and its darkest chapter was still being written. One whispering sigh, one spreading patch of cold, one silently rotting lily at a time. The noon had disappeared, but the thing that took her remained, waiting patiently beneath the stones, its sorrow an unending, insatiable void. And Evangeline knew, with a certainty that froze her soul, that she wouldn't be the last to vanish into the hungry dark of St. Mary's. The horror was just waking up.